Excellent!
I think at this point anything is possible. Really. But hello,
Are we live?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to or welcome back to Awesome Hardware, the live show that Cal and I do every Tuesday evening at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv/awesomehardware. You can watch the re-uploads afterwards on my channel on YouTube, Paul's Hardware, or on Kyle's channel on YouTube, Awesome Sauce Network. And we've already had a raucous first half of the show.
It was.
That was Kyle's half, so if you missed that, go ahead and check it out on Kyle's channel. It will also maybe explain the present situation because we've already gone a little bit late. I'm gonna try to bang through my half of the show. We're gonna go boom, boom, boom. It's gonna be like lightning fast knowledge in your face.
Pure efficiency.
About technology. It's gonna be very efficient, and that's really what we're going for here. But thanks for joining us, guys. If you are here, and
apparently in chat I was referring to Microsoft as AMD, Microsoft as Nvidia, like 10 times over.
They're easy to get confused.
But how did you not pick up on that? If that's the truth?
Because I was just waiting for you to stop talking so I could end the show.
You're a terrible co-host.
I'm not a terrible co-host. I was trying to make things punchy. You know, you gotta move from point to point.
All right.
You gotta keep things
understood.
You gotta keep people interested.
All
or
right.
something. People. Oh, you were referring to AMD as Nvidia.
Apparently.
Oh, you were calling them Nvidia.
Microsoft. I was calling Microsoft.
They said you were saying Nvidia instead of AMD.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize.
All right. Well, I'm sorry I didn't catch
in the
that.
description below.
By the way, a quick beer check for you guys. If you're, and also part of the announcements, as always, you can buy stuff from our stores. We're drinking out of the lovely Paul's Hardware English pint glasses, which are available on my store if you're interested in a Paul's Hardware piece of paraphernalia. I am drinking from Great Divide Brewing Company. This is a Yeti. Chocolate oak aged Yeti. It's an imperial stout, and it's been quite delicious so far.
Nice.
And mine is, what percentage is mine? I didn't even look.
I think it's 7 or 8. I want to say Yeti 7 or 8.
I feel like it should say somewhere on here.
And I'm drinking the Cherny Medved. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's an imperial Russian stout. It's 13%, which I did not realize until after I bought it. I swear to God. 13%. And that's perhaps why I called Microsoft Nvidia or whatever.
Mine is 9.5, so mine's definitely no slouch, but definitely not 13.
Yeah.
It's like Kyle's drinking straight wine over there.
This won't happen again, I swear.
But cheers to all of you. Thank you for joining us.
Cheers.
As always, at the beginning of the show.
Thanks for sticking with us.
And the second half. Here's to the second half and a great second half.
All right, so what do we got lined up, Paul?
Well, Kyle, on my half of the show, we'll be continuing technology news, of course, as we usually do on the second half of the show.
Yep.
Other than that, I have a segment. I don't even know if I've done this segment before. It's called Conspiracy Theories.
Okay.
Where we discuss conspiracy theories. We're also going to do a sword fight, of course, the classic and never to be missed. And then we'll be finishing off with some Q&A.
Nice.
Where we do some open questions for folks who might be watching the show or participating on Twitter.
All right.
If you guys want to tweet to us, our Twitter handles are down below. And since we're at my house, they are
correct
on the proper side.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Not that it would be difficult to create another one for Kyle's house.
We'll fix that eventually.
Over there in Kyle's house.
Yeah.
For now. But and also thanks to all you guys who have joined us in the Twitch chat. We got Cell in here. We got Nocturne Kitty, of course. I think we've been missing Fractal Josh this time around. But
I haven't seen Strider either.
Haven't seen Strider, but I think Manic Geek's in there.
Yep.
And all you, everyone, you're all fantastic people. And
indeed.
Thanks for joining us today. All right. I didn't do the obligatory store plugs. All right, here's Kyle's store, awesomesaucenetwork.com/store. You can buy shirts like the one I'm wearing right here. The overly aggressive and happy heatsink.
I actually updated the color of the CPU too.
Oh, you did?
He's now gold instead of tan.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a rare, limited first run.
Yes.
And then on my store, you have some Paul's Hardware stuff. I have some new shirts in the works with my thumbscrew logo on them that I'm excited about. And then, of course, you also have my glassware if you guys are interested. I've got mugs and the English pint glasses. and they work great for holding beverages. All right,
That they do.
let us move to some tech news.
What do we got?
I have a lower thirds
Yeah.
to highlight the segment. All right. All right, let's start off with some GPU news. This is from videocards.com, and the word on the street. Oh no, I'm starting to go as well. The word on the street is that NVIDIA might be preparing the GTX 950 and/or 950 Ti, possibly, maybe. Okay. This is a very early rumor, according to VideoCards, and basically the information that they know. This is what they're saying is already confirmed, is that there is a new GPU. The code name is Maxwell GM206-250, which is a cut-down version of GM206-300, which is the 1024 CUDA-core processor that's used in the GTX 960.
Right.
So a variant of this GM206, possibly to be placed in a what we can only assume might be a 950 or 950 Ti. The 750 and 750 Ti have long been, since they launched last year, pretty successful in their price bracket, in about $100 to $150 range. They were the first Maxwell-based GPUs that NVIDIA launched, and now we are supposed to see their updated version, so it's still going to be Maxwell-based. But I'm guessing, obviously they're going to outperform the 750 and 750 Ti. We have to assume that.
Right.
I mean, we're already assuming that it's a 950 and 950 Ti in general. They also do know that it's a GeForce product and a GTX class.
Okay.
So that's significant just in that they don't call NVIDIA doesn't usually call a GPU GTX unless it's a little bit higher end. They have their super low end, what they call GT, and they usually have like a 40 or whatever, or that kind of range card. This isn't them. And then scrolling down, VideoCards has put a little chart here where you can kind of give a comparison of the current offerings from NVIDIA on the left and AMD on the right, and where the 950 Ti might line up, which would be against AMD's R7 370 and R7 360 at the $110 and $150 price points.
So basically, NVIDIA didn't have an existing GPU to fill that price gap, that kind of lower end price gap that AMD already had.
Well, they do. I mean, they have the 750 and 750 Ti right now.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, as far as Maxwell goes.
Yeah, but since AMD launched the 300 series, and they have either rebadged, rebranded, or lowered the price of all of their GPUs to make them line up more competitively with their price and performance brackets, a 950 and 950 Ti to compete with those lower end AMD offerings would make sense.
I don't know about you, but I feel like a 960 Ti would have been, I don't know, something that more gamers would have wanted, just because there was such kind of a backlash with the 960 release that I feel like a lot of people were expecting closer performance to a 970. That I don't know. I felt like a 960 Ti would be a nice gap filler between the 960 and the 970.
Well, the 970 being around 300,
right?
The 960 being around 200, a 960 Ti around 250-ish would make sense. Yeah. And we're hoping it's more of like a cut down 970 than a beefed up 960.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, that's as close as we can come. But we have zero idea. We have zero clue about a 960 Ti right now.
Yeah.
But for any guys looking for either a budget GPU or possibly who have like an old system that is a fine enough computer, but you want to drop in a graphics card and make it more of a gaming system, that's the way these go. And usually these are also very low power, often don't require PEG connectors or supplemental PEG connectors, that sort of thing. And it's something to look forward to. So
cool.
New GPUs. All right, next up, a little bit of a public service announcement here. Update your Flash player. Write the F now. That's
okay.
Yeah, that's the general idea from this article.
Why is that?
Well, this is from Business Insider, but this is actually reported on quite a few locations. So Adobe Flash has a vulnerability again that needs to be patched again. There's not a whole lot
like
of
security.
There's not a whole lot of pictures to show except for this lightning going across the sky, which has
nothing to do with.
Which has a lot to do with Adobe Flash and cyber black markets. That's what cyber black markets do. They cause lightning to arc across the sky. That's how they do their attacks. A DDoS. That's how you know a DDoS is happening. Like, oh, the lightning. They must be DDoSing again. You can see that lightning arcing across the sky.
Have Radar installed.
All right, you should update your Adobe Flash because every 2 weeks when I boot my computer up, I get an update your Adobe Flash thing, and I do it. I do it every time because of stories like this. All right, so this is this vulnerability was originally spotted by researchers at security firm FireEye. They detected a number of phishing messages targeting businesses in the aerospace, defense, construction, technology, and telecoms industries, which are, not very important.
No, they're small time, right?
They're small time, but it's a Flash plugin vulnerability, and it's known so far to have been used by the infamous Clandestine Wolf hacker group.
Okay.
I feel like they need a more ominous name. Not that Clandestine Wolf is not ominous.
It's like the best they could come up with.
But it seems very like it seems like the name a professor would come up with. Clandestine Wolf. I mean, like
the bad guy you'd hear about in a movie.
Bad Wolf from like Doctor Who would be better than Clandestine Wolf. Not that I'm mocking this hacker group at all. I think you're fantastic people. You're wonderful.
Next
all
week's
of you.
Awesome hardware is going to be totally hacked.
God damn it. God damn it. No, that's not at all what I was trying to say. But the difference here is that originally it was spotted by a hacker group using it, but now it's actually been integrated into some hacker exploit kits, which are like, kits you can get if you don't really know much about hacking yourself, but I really want to hack somebody. You can get these kits and kind of work your way out to use them yourself. I have zero experience with any of this, of course, but the idea is that if it's in an exploit kit, it's easier for somebody who maybe isn't like a crazy programmer to use, but just wants to do something nefarious can use, which means that it's possibly going to be wider spread and easier for people to take advantage of.
Sure.
Update your Adobe Flash now. This can compromise personal data, and that's really what, from what they've found out so far, that's what they've been trying to do with it. Okay.
Good reason to update.
Yeah, let's move on to some hardware news.
All right.
More hardware news since we already talked about some GPUs.
You got a Philips HD monitor?
Yes, Kyle talked about a new monitor on his side of the show. I have a new monitor on my side of the show too. This one's from Philips.
Okay.
It's 4K. It's 32 inches, and it's pretty awesome from what I can tell. It's 32-inch 4K, 3840 by 2160, and 60 hertz and IPS.
Okay.
Those are like your 4 headlining features of this. So that's big one. It's not one of the 27, 28-inch models that we've seen a lot of, but that aren't as good on the color reproduction.
Yeah.
It includes HDMI 2.0. Let me show. Sorry. So this is from Big Stroons. Big Stroons posted this over on overclock.net. And
does this monitor support FreeSync or G-Sync?
Yeah. Wait, doesn't it? Didn't I say that? 4K, 2.0. No, it doesn't.
It's not.
It's neither FreeSync nor G-Sync.
Okay.
You're right. That's a good point.
All right.
But it's less expensive than a FreeSync or G-Sync monitor, as far as I can tell.
Sure.
And it's 60 hertz.
Okay.
And 60 hertz is good for a lot of people. Man, way to suck the wind out of my sails. I'm suddenly like, no, it doesn't have FreeSync or G-Sync.
Because usually that's like the headline that people start with. Like, it's a FreeSync or a G-Sync monitor.
You're right, and looking at monitors, I'm like, that's the thing that pops out to me.
Right.
Usually, but I looked at there were all these like headlining specs for this one that I was like,
so maybe this is more for professionals with like color coordination,
maybe
color
more for
editing, and whatnot.
Professional use. Look at these pictures of the monitor stand. I like this monitor stand. You can see you have height, tilt, swivel, pivot.
Yeah.
The 4 corners of monitor stand goodness.
I like the curve. It's very contemporary.
Yeah, a little bit of a curve there. But the monitor looks nice overall.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell pretty basic as far as that goes. But specs-wise, apart from the lack of G-Sync or FreeSync, 32-inch 4K, 60 hertz, IPS panel, HDMI 2.0 included, which is nice for everyone except those of you who just bought a Fury X. 10-bit It's a 10-bit panel, so IPS and 10-bit. That's referring to the color depth and color reproduction. It's got a 12-bit internal processing, or I believe that's equivalent to a 12-bit lookup table, so it can do dithering or other things to imitate a 12-bit.
Right.
But that still gives you, with 10-bit, 1.074 billion colors.
Just a few there.
The LCD panel type is IPS AHVA. It's got an LED backlight. The one shortcoming of it, apart from the FreeSync or G-Sync support, from a gaming perspective, is the response time, which is 12 milliseconds gray to gray typical, or you can put it on smart response mode, which I imagine might hurt your I don't know what that's going to affect, but you can, in smart response mode, you can get 4 milliseconds gray to gray.
Right. So it's not true response time. They probably do some. Yeah. They have some technology that
something going on there to improve the response time. But yeah. Other than that, 350 candles per square meter brightness, 100,000 to 1 contrast ratio.
Is there any price on this?
Good question. It's another thing that I.
A 32-inch 4K panel, 60 hertz IPS, I would guess would be $600 to $800.
$600-800.
Without G-Sync or FreeSync, I don't know how it could sell for much more than that. It would be $600 to $800, my guess.
I do not think pricing is listed yet. This was just announced by Philips.
Okay.
So we don't have pricing yet, as far as I can tell.
But you never know. Maybe in the future, Philips will release a G-Sync or FreeSync capable monitor and break into the gaming aspect, because this is definitely more of a workstation type panel.
Yeah, content creation and then that kind of thing. Yeah. But nice monitor there from Philips.
Cool.
All right, moving along with some more tech news. Supermicro. You guys know Supermicro?
Yeah.
They make server boards for the most part. How about a Supermicro Z97 gaming motherboard?
Someone said in chat something was smoking behind me.
What?
Said something was smoking.
Smoking?
Yeah.
Nothing is smoking.
Yeah, Mosh Dog said something is smoking in the background. Look behind you.
What?
I'm just making sure that like your house isn't on fire. That's all. Not me.
I don't see anything smoking.
Okay. Explain yourself, Mosh Dog.
I don't know. I think he's trolling us.
Think so.
Being trolled. All right.
How dare you?
Supermicro. So this is the C7Z97-M. It is a micro ATX motherboard. You can see a picture of it right there. And I thought this was interesting simply because Supermicro is not necessarily known for making consumer parts. They're usually like a very reliable go-to in the server space, but you don't really hear of them making boards for consumers, or especially boards for gaming. So here's a look at the board itself. Other specs, it's micro ATX, it's a Z97 chipset motherboard, it's LGA1150, so it's going to accommodate your Haswell processors.
Yeah.
Other than that, I did note that it lacked, for instance, M.2. It lacks a second PCI Express by 16 slot. You notice there's one red one here, but there's not a second one, which there could be on a micro ATX motherboard. And it also doesn't have SATA Express. Let's look at the I/O. So the article here from Hexus, which is a full review, which you guys are welcome to check out, and I'll post in the links in the YouTube description once that's available.
Sure.
It's an interesting review. What they were pointing out was basically that Hexus has a lot of competition. That Supermicro has a lot of competition in this space.
Yeah.
From your Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, ASRock.
Right.
And that's to differentiate themselves and to convince people that it's worth buying a Supermicro board versus one of those other boards from the more established people in this space. It's difficult to do. One of the things Supermicro is touting here is that Supermicro makes server-grade motherboards. Server-grade motherboards are made for like long-lasting reliability, durability, all that kind of stuff. So they use nicer components, which are usually rated to run at like higher temperatures and have longer lifespans. And that is also what they have integrated into this board here.
Okay.
However, as the reviewer on the article was pointing out, which is Ryan Martin, was that it's very difficult to review that sort of thing. It's really hard to take a motherboard and be like, I bet this motherboard's still going to be just as good in a year and a half.
You need a lot of time to review something like that.
It's harder to point those things out. So without those kind of like headlining features, it's maybe not quite as compelling as an offer.
Yeah.
But interested in what you guys think, and if you have prior knowledge of Supermicro, and if that knowledge makes you maybe interested at all in a board like this. But yeah, time will tell.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Cool.
Who knows? All right, let's move on to some. I have interesting news to talk about here. Not that any of the news I've talked about so far has not been interesting, but let's talk about some Intel news. Now, Intel makes processors.
No.
Just wanted to point that out to you guys.
Impossible.
Intel has plans to continue making processors in the future. That's what these next couple articles are about.
That's news to me.
Now, we already know that the next generation of Intel processors is codenamed Skylake. We already know, for instance, that they're going to be using socket 1151 motherboards. Not going to be backwards compatible. You don't do that.
I'm not.
You don't do that.
I'm not.
I'm perfectly. You went long on your side of the show.
I'm totally solid.
I think you're good.
Yeah. I'm gonna pass out.
Kyle's gonna be asleep here in 5 or 10 minutes.
We got this.
All right, so we know Skylake's going to be the next generation 1151 motherboards, 100 series chipsets. We saw a lot of these on display actually in Computex, or at least I did. Kyle just watched videos of them. But what happens after that? Well, we'll answer that in just a second. But we have a little bit more information about Skylake first of all. Hey, wrong button. Skylake-S K-series processors. So Intel's still going to have K-series processors with Skylake, but the scuttlebutt here from this WCCF Tech article is that they will not ship with a heatsink fan, right?
Okay.
Because who wants one of them anyway, right?
Yeah.
So the idea here is taking from what they've been doing with enthusiast processors for a couple generations now, which is like, hey, if you're spending $350 or $550 or $1,000 on an enthusiast unlocked overclockable processor, chances are you're going to have zero plans to do anything with the actual heatsink fan that might ship with them, because the ones that Intel ships with are usually adequate but not good by any stretch of the imagination when it comes to cooling performance or noise generation. So I'm okay with this, especially if it means that they can like reduce the price a little bit by $5 or $10, and who knows if that's actually going to be the case.
And it's good for the environment.
It's good for the environment if you're not wasting it or anything like that and just throwing it away. Other than that, though, they do have a list, and we've shown a list similar to this of the actual processors. This goes all the way down to a 6400T on this list, which is these are all 14 nanometer. That's a 35 watt processor. There's a 35 watt range on the desktop, a 65 watt range on the desktop, and then a 95 watt range. And these are the ones that all of us are probably going to be most interested in. Yeah. Not to say that there's nothing good going on with the lower end ones, but these are the unlocked ones.
I like how the naming scheme has kind of reverted back to
thank God they've simplified
almost, right?
it. They've reduced the number of numerals that you need to remember. Yeah. There's no more 5775C, whatever the frickin' hell they named the Broadwell ones.
Of numbers, right?
We have an i7 6700K. Which is your 4-core 8-thread, hyper-threading enabled, 8 meg cache, DDR4 support, 95 watts. And we have a 6600K, which is non-hyper-threaded, 4 cores, 4 threads, also 95 watt LG1151. The 6600K is going to boost up to 3.9. The 6700K is going to boost up to 4.2. Again, all this stuff is still in the area of rumor and speculation, but it's pretty, I think we can be pretty sure that most of this is true. And
now it's just a matter of how overclockable are they.
Yes. So overclocking remains to be seen, and performance and all that good stuff. But nice to know that they're all using DDR4, of course. You also get a bit more cache with the 6700K. All right, but we already know a lot of this stuff. We've already talked about at least some of this stuff before. Are you telling him where you got the shirt?
Yep. Yes,
Spartan Spearman. These shirts are available on Kyle's store, which is awesomesaucenetwork.com/store. All right. What's after Skylake? That's what I want to talk about. what's after Skylake?
Wow.
Right? Because Skylake's supposed to be. We also we have more information. So Skylake. I'm skipping over information.
Okay.
Skylake, we're expecting a paper launch at Gamescom in Germany, which runs from August 5th to 9th.
What's paper launch for those that don't know?
A paper launch means they're confirming the products they're launching and the specs of them, but they don't actually have hardware to distribute. So usually a paper launch is like similar to what we saw AMD do with the Fury X like a little over a week ago. It was like, yes, there's a Fury X. Yes, here's how many stream processors it will have and all the specs and everything. Right. Here are our benchmark numbers for you to trust, maybe.
Right.
But what you don't usually see are review samples going out to reviewers or just the product being available at retail. Yeah. That's a paper launch.
Like a reveal, but not a release.
Here's all this stuff we're going to launch. And like, okay, can we have one? No, not for another month. Okay, that's a paper launch.
It's like a big tease.
It's just paper.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it's still them confirming stuff and everything. And usually with something like this, especially if they do it at an event, which they typically like to do, they'll probably have some demos going and something like that. So maybe we'll have some information.
Yeah.
Retail launch is expected about a month after, so that would be beginning of September maybe.
Okay.
But all right, but I already asked, what is after that? What comes after Skylake? And
Kaby?
Prior to now, it's been Cannon Lake.
Cannon Lake
has been the next one on Intel's roadmap, but we actually have what maybe is going to be something in between.
Okay.
Kaby Lake.
So when you say in between, is this like, are we supposed to expect the kind of performance that Broadwell brought about, where it was kind of just...
What did Broadwell bring?
Yeah, exactly.
Broadwell, what to me was... I think they only even launched Broadwell CPUs on the desktop because they said they would, and they had to. If they didn't say they would, and they didn't say when Z97 launched that, hey, this is going to be Broadwell compatible too, they would have just skipped it.
It's because they had already made them.
Or they would have just launched it. Well, because they made them and they launched them on the mobile, for mobile, but they didn't do a whole lot on the desktop space. And when it did come to desktop, it seemed like a lot of an afterthought.
They got backed up. They got backed up with that.
All right, so this is Kaby Lake.
Okay.
And
Kaby Lake.
I also like an article that says Kabi in the description and then Kaby in the article itself. Kaby Lake.
We don't even know how it's spelled yet. That's how little we know about this.
This is from Guru3D.com though.
Okay.
And Kaby Lake. So
double talk.
Yeah, well, that's what I wrote, Kyle.
Oh.
I wrote double talk.
Oh.
So here's some slides that were leaked by benchlife.info about Kaby Lake.
Sounds reliable.
64-bit multi-core processor built on a 14-nanometer process technology.
Okay.
Here's a look at the layout for the S processor platform, which includes the processor itself as well as a PCH, which would be part of the chipset. And then they also have this one, which is, I believe, the U-line processor, which is lower power and probably more geared towards mobile.
Cool.
So, what's important about Kaby Lake?
Fellas.
To my deductions here, this is a double talk, as Kyle just mentioned. Talk being T-O-C-K. Intel's launch cadence goes tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock.
Right.
With a tick being a process shrink, making a smaller and more refined process.
A refresh
and
or so.
Yeah, and a talk being a microarchitecture update.
Like a manufacturing process advancement.
So the actual engineering of the actual microarchitecture of the CPU itself.
Right.
So you can have this, here's the same CPU architecture, but it's smaller.
Right.
That's a tick. Talk is whole new CPU microarchitecture. Now, we already had a double talk, so to speak, with the Haswell refresh, aka Devil's Canyon, that they launched last year in the summer.
So we're getting like a 2-for-1 deal here.
That's if you were an Intel marketing rep, maybe that's what you'd say.
Sure.
If you're anyone else, you might say this is Intel just kind of like pacing out their product cycle launch because they don't have a lot of competition to deal with.
Yeah.
All right, so their last double talk was Devil's Canyon, as already mentioned. So Haswell, for instance, was 22 nanometer, which was a talk. Broadwell was the Haswell microarchitecture shrunk down to 14 nanometers, which was a tick. But between Haswell proper and Broadwell, they had the Haswell refresh, or Devil's Canyon, which was still 22 nanometer, just a Haswell refinement. All right, so from Broadwell, which is at 14 nanometer right now, they're going to go to Skylake, which is still going to be 14 nanometer, but it's going to be new microarchitecture, and that will be a talk.
Okay.
After that, there would have been Cannon Lake, which would have been a tick.
Yeah.
Which would be the Skylake microarchitecture shrunk down to 10 nanometers. But we're not expecting that till 2017 now.
Okay.
What we're expecting in between is Kaby Lake, which is still going to be LG 1151, presumably still going to work with 100 series motherboards and Z170 chipsets.
Yeah.
And the derivatives thereof and everything. But since Skylake was 14 nanometers and Kaby Lake is also 14 nanometers, this is basically a double talk. They're going from Skylake a talk to Kaby Lake, which is also a talk or just a refinement of Skylake, to Cannon Lake. It's just this time, instead of calling it a Haswell refresh, they've had a new name for it.
So we kind of had a slump with Broadwell being a tick, and you know, a lot of desktop users were probably disappointed hearing that the majority of purpose of Broadwell was in the mobile market. But in response, Intel has kind of given us the benefit of having 2 talks in a row with Skylake, as well as, what is this new one?
Kaby Lake.
Kaby Lake following. So we get two
Kaby.
talks. 2 talks, which is, I mean, you've been around the PC industry longer than I have. When's the last time Intel had 2 talks in a row?
Double talk. The Haswell refresh.
Haswell refresh.
Is what we were just talking about a few minutes ago.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
I was totally there.
But
100%.
Because they've only been doing TikTok since 2006 or 2007.
Right.
And they did that as a result of AMD actually kicking their butts.
Right.
But TikTok has worked very well for them since. It's just that they haven't kept up with the cadence, and there's been 2 schools of thought. One is that there's been difficulties with refining the manufacturing process to work with smaller nodes. The other school of thought is that AMD just hasn't been putting any pressure on Intel to release faster products. Yeah. So, yeah. So
they're kind of at their own leisure.
Yeah. So as a result, Intel's just been kind of like, well, we'll just slow down the launch cycle a little bit. We'll space stuff out a little bit.
They get to kind of cruise a bit.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So my question at the end of all this is, will AMD's Zen architecture, which is their new x86 CPU architecture, which we're hoping to see later this year or possibly next year?
Yeah.
I think probably next year, 2016 is what we've probably heard. Will that have any impact on Intel's launch cadence? Who knows?
All right.
Who knows? But you know what? I've had this image up on the screen for quite some time. All right. So endeth the hardware news segment.
All right. Cool. So then up next we got what, your conspiracy theories?
Yes. Next up is my new segment called Conspiracy Theories. I don't have a thing for it though.
It's very ominous.
I'm gonna use one of the other ones. We're gonna use to fund or not.
Are these
to fund.
conspiracy theories you personally believe?
No.
Or stand behind?
But here's how the conspiracy theories are gonna work, right?
Okay.
And we're gonna talk about each conspiracy theory, and then we need to decide whether the conspiracy theory is true or not. So.
They're all false.
What? No, you don't know this yet. You haven't heard any of it yet.
They're conspiracy theories.
We're gonna ask people in chat to tell us whether the conspiracy theory, which is represented by the to fund or not to fund lower thirds right here, whether these are true or not. And they grow progressively more and more feasible as we move along. So that's kind of how I've organized them. All right, first conspiracy theory. This is all over the internet in the past couple days. All right, UFOs, right?
Yep.
Oh, wrong button. UFOs. Okay, so NASA has been doing live feeds, right? Why won't this ad go away? They should let you get rid of ads on websites. So NASA's been doing live feeds, and there was a live feed of a satellite going around the Earth, and there were UFOs that appeared on it, and then NASA cut the feed. They just cut it, clearly indicating that people were seeing things that you shouldn't see. See these red circles?
Yes.
Circling those little dots?
Those are aliens?
Aliens. Clearly aliens.
Conspiracy theory.
Look at this right there.
That's clearly an
if you guys
alien
don't believe
UFO.
you guys don't believe me, I'm gonna play a video right here. This is by KRR Films. This is way longer than it actually is. Look at this. So this is what they do when they don't want you to see stuff. When they go into the please stand by mode. But now watch. Just watch this here. Or just look at it. Zoom in. Look at that. You see that there?
Oh my goodness.
Look at that thing moving.
No human-made object could move that fast.
And I don't know if I'm playing the music here through chat, but they have
enhance
freaky music playing.
You like enhance the video. It's like a butterfly.
So see that right there? That's
like
the aliens. You can clearly see them conspiring against us.
That would be ridiculous.
Here's another one. Wait, watch where it zooms in right here. No. There's no way.
That's not an alien.
Look how it zoomed in, and see that little dot? What? Look at that. Look at that. What is that?
How do you know this isn't completely faked?
Because NASA cut the feed. That's why. And people were seeing it. They were seeing the truth.
How do you know that's not fake?
NASA was like, we can't let people look at it. Look how it zooms in, and then it's like, is he right there?
Well, if NASA cuts the feed, it's probably something on their end that they're doing that they don't want the public to know about.
No, Kyle. Yeah. This is a conspiracy. NASA knows about these unidentified flying objects. It's clear evidence that aliens exist.
I'm half drunk and I already know this is fake.
All right. Well, this is
clearly something is wrong with your better judgment.
Aliens is yes. I said aliens is just now.
I wish aliens existed.
All right. So here's the question: do aliens exist? Has this been proven definitively
with the YouTube
by
video.
this NASA feed?
By this.
What
YouTube video by KRF Films.
Well, no, he just re-uploaded it because he wanted to the truth to be out there. Because the truth is out there, Kyle.
Okay. Johnson.
So what do you say?
Is this a sword fight now?
No, I'm asking for people's opinions. Do you think that aliens exist as a result of seeing this video?
Not from the video.
Okay, Kyle says no. Everyone else appears to be mainly discussing how drunk you are. It's ranging somewhere between half drunk.
It's quite impressive,
and
actually.
All the drunk.
Yeah,
I'm impressed so far.
We're
hearing no. I'm not doing a straw poll for this one. That would overlap too much with my next segment.
Here's the tip: don't drink 13% beer if you're going to go on a live stream for anything. I don't care if it's like for a beer festival. Don't drink 13% beer.
I learned this when I drank my quad.
This is dangerous.
You remember my quad?
I do.
I was pretty loopy.
That was what, 11, 12%? That was a good one.
All right, so aliens don't exist. We've determined that now based on the results from people commenting in chat. All right, here's the next conspiracy theory we're going to discuss here. This one's a little bit closer to home. I warn you.
Okay.
That's assuming, of course, that this Reddit post loads. We're still streaming.
Your internet's been kind of funky lately.
Every once in a while, we've had a little bit of weirdness going on with the internet. Now suddenly this. All right, we're gonna wait on the Reddit post. All right, so let's talk about AMD a little bit here, shall we?
Okay.
And AMD being shady.
AMD.
Shady AMD, right?
Shady.
AMD being shady with their drivers.
The title of this article is Scumbag AMD.
This is an article. This is a paste bin. But what I really wanted to pull up was this. All right, here's the Reddit discussion. All right, so first off, AMD doing funky things with their drivers. All right, here's a Reddit discussion. The Fury X is possibly reviewed with incorrect drivers.
No.
See, there's a Catalyst 15.15 drivers.
But whose
There's
fault
different
is that?
dates that are attributed to the different drivers, June 15th, June 17th, and June 20th. And the current 15.15 on AMD's website is a June 20th version, but HardOCP, for example, used the June 15th version in their review. All these drivers are still called Catalyst 15.15. So what is AMD doing here, and why are there multiple versions of the driver?
There's multiple versions of the 15.15 driver?
And could that have affected... Now, I'm going to skip by this actual quote from a person directly from AMD that explains everything, and go down here...
Sounds like the worst
and go down here... to all these pictures showing different reviewers using different drivers for their different things.
Okay.
Which is clearly a conspiracy. Now here you can see the R9 Fury X, which is beating the 980 Ti by at least
barely
60 points.
Out of
no way,
what
that's
percentage
that.
is
I'm
that?
gonna
That's
click
like
on another link
0.2%.
here. Look at this one. Look at this one. Did you see this one? Look at the Fury X here, beating the Titan X. Why would AMD be hiding? Why would AMD be hiding this information?
By 1 FPS, Paul.
Yeah.
Explain
definitive.
yourself.
It's definitive. And I'm going to briefly go back up here to a post straight from AMD Matt, who works from AMD, who says that for reference, this is what the driver strings mean. This is the driver he's provided, that's the branch, this is the date, and this is the build request from our system to create this driver based on the information above. And the review is suggesting the driver data from June 12th, and the build request has a letter instead of some number for its last digit, so it's either a lot of typos or someone being misleading on purpose.
Okay.
Conspiracy. That's obviously a conspiracy at work here. This is what I'm pointing out. I'm gonna scroll down this Reddit thread randomly. And you guys are reading all this stuff, right? You're getting all this.
Got it all.
Okay.
Absorb.
What about this? What about this paste
a
bin?
water show in Vegas?
No,
This
I'm
is the
trying to scroll past
Bellagio.
that. What about this paste bin linked to me by none other than Edsel Yago?
He linked this to you?
Yeah, he posted this earlier.
I don't trust anything Edsel
Since
posts.
January, there are 2 forks of AMD drivers. The official one, 14.12, blah, blah, and the unofficial Windows 10 fork, right? And there, you can find drivers from it leaked on the Guru 3D Catalyst subforum. The newer drivers have much better frame rates, but they don't apply those better frame rates to the older cards. That's what they're saying. That's what this paste bin says. I believe this. It's text on the internet, so I believe it.
Older drivers for the Fury X?
You understand what I'm saying to you, Kyle?
Just say it again.
What they're saying here in this paste bin is that AMD basically has forked their drivers.
Okay.
And by forked, I mean fucked.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying right now.
Okay.
Okay? They forked their drivers so that if you're using an older generation like a 200 series card, it uses one set of parameters, but if you're using a GPU flagged as a newer generation or 300 series card, it uses a newer set of parameters to artificially make the 300 series cards, even though they're based on the same silicon as the 200 series cards, seem better.
Right.
I've
read several articles on that.
You've read that?
Yes.
On the internet?
On the interwebs.
All right, so this is what I want to ask people in chat right now.
Yes.
Is AMD being shady about this stuff? We need to get to the bottom of this. Or, if I may phrase this in a similar way to the way I phrased the first question from Conspiracy Theories, is this proof that AMD exists? That might be.
I think
that
I'm
might
pretty
be.
sure they exist.
That might be a slight mispronunciation there. All right, so yeah, that's messed up. That is messed up.
Totally.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's why we're bringing you guys the truth right now.
I agree.
Or it could just be people on the internet talking about shit. Who knows? Yeah, it's shady. It's shady. All right, AMD and aliens. Same thing.
Is that how you've tied in the last article with this
Conspiracy
one?
theories.
Okay.
I need to do this segment more often because this is a lot of fun. Conspiracy theories. We have one more.
Okay. Here we go.
I feel bad because the third one is actually somewhat serious.
Why does that make you feel bad?
You're right. It shouldn't make me feel bad because this is conspiracy theories. We're exposing this so that people know.
Yes.
People know the truth on the internet. All right. I'm also not pointing out that we're drawing zero conclusions or solutions to any of these things. All right.
That's not the point of the show.
The TPP, right? Are you guys familiar with the TPP?
You're probably not.
You're probably not if you're based in the United States, because when I looked up information on the TPP earlier to do research on this article, you know where the actual links to news stories came from?
The TPP.
Places outside of the United States. That makes me immediately know for a fact that these articles within the United States are being blocked or not reported on because there's a conspiracy.
Clearly.
So this is actually from CNET Australia. Blind agreement and closed-door deals report slams TPP negotiations. The other conspiracy theory here is that this whole gay rights thing that was going off the charts in the past week, in the U.S. and SCOTUS, and it's now legal to get gay married in all 50 states and all that stuff.
Sure.
Nothing more than window dressing. Nothing more than just bait being thrown out there to lure the public into this frenzy of
Gayness?
Of gayness. No, not gayness.
What?
We're not saying anything bad about Gaines here, but to distract people from the reality of the TPP.
Okay. So it's all just been a big flashbang.
Perhaps that is not putting enough importance on the rights of gay people, and that's not at all what I want to do here. But the point being here that this is the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is a massive deal between 11 countries, including Canada, the US, Mexico, Peru, Chile, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Brunei, Japan, Singapore, and Vietnam. 12 countries around the Pacific Rim. And this is an ongoing thing. This was recently signed by Obama, I believe. But somebody in chat just said, holy shit, am I gay? This is why we do the conspiracy theory segment.
Yes.
Just so you guys can be made aware of this thing. All right. I'll be honest here. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be straight with you guys.
Is that a pun? Is a pun intended right there?
I don't know enough. I don't know enough about the TPP.
How straight will you be? Nor
have I drank little enough alcohol to discuss it in a rational and adult, I guess, manner. Here's what I will say. The TPP is serious. It is something that you should know about and understand to some degree, and not something that you should be getting information from this show about. At least not right now. So check the article I posted in the description.
So basically what you're saying right now is don't consider this show as a credible source for any information we're reporting on.
Not the last quarter to a half of the show.
At least we're honest. At least we're a really honest show.
That's true.
Yeah, I respect that.
Honesty, that's all I'm saying.
I agree.
But
so where should they go for information on this?
Tech Syndicate? I don't know.
What? Let's just put the whole burden on them.
If I had done more research on that, then I would be able to direct people to a proper thing. All I know is you should be aware, just like awareness of the TPP is a good thing. These types of international trade agreements are often things that fly under the radar with little to no public knowledge about. These are things that, thanks to the internet and thanks to people who have some degree of understanding of like the way international commerce works and agreements between countries and trade agreements works, have been calling more attention to.
Right.
But it's also the type of thing that can be easily swept under the rug. And the people who are arranging it are the people who want it to be swept under the rug, so that people don't get up in arms about it. Like, hey, you're setting a pretty sweet deal for yourself there with this international trade agreement that most of the people in your country have zero influence upon.
Right.
Anyway. Before this goes to a vote for Congress, at least in the U.S., though, the actual details, the full agreement needs to be published for 60 days. That hasn't happened yet because it's still in the negotiation phase. But once that is actually published, I'm sure we'll be hearing more information of people who are reading it and communicating it intelligently and everything. I feel like that last segment was at least somewhat intelligent with what I said. But anyway.
Yeah. I felt it left a
Trans-Pacific Partnership, to ask the same question I've asked with the other segments here on conspiracy theories. Is this proof that the Trans-Pacific Partnership exists? I guess it is. No, I was trying to phrase that in never mind.
Okay.
All right, we're good.
All right.
Moving on to segment 3, sword fight.
Yeah.
Wait, we have a lower thirds.
Oh, you're totally going to win this.
All right, we got a sword fight.
I'm going to lose all the sword fights.
Sword fight going on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me just pull up some of these really quick. Sword fight is the regular segment that I do on my half of the show.
Okay.
And it involves discussing what is hopefully oh, hey, that's my video playing. Discussing what is hopefully a somewhat debatable topic. Cal and I take both sides of it. You guys get to weigh in as well via a straw poll. After we've debated, we'll take a look. I'm a little bit drunk. Not very much. No, I'm kind of drunk.
I'll carry you for the rest of the drunkenness.
No.
Drunken enough for the both of us.
Anyway, point is, you guys will get to weigh in as well, and at the end, we'll look at what you said about it, and we will determine which of us was correct based on what you said.
Yeah.
That makes sense. All right.
Yeah, sure.
So the Radeon R9 Fury X. Okay.
Was it good or not? Is that the question?
Well, if you want to oversimplify it, sure. This uses more syllables. This is a Hexus.net article, and it uses more syllables to ask the question, so I'll use their phrasing, which is, did the AMD Radeon R9 Fury X meet your expectations?
Do you want to choose
did it meet your
the side, or would you like me to choose a side?
Usually, at least for the first one, you get to choose your own side, so we'll do that.
Okay. I'm going to say that I'm for the Fury X.
So you're going to say Fury X. So my simplified question is AMD Radeon R9 Fury X, good or bad?
I'm going to say good.
And
vote good.
If you guys click on the link that I just posted in chat, you can vote on the straw poll. I've said it was amazing.
Okay.
I was disappointed. Or of course you always got your fence straddlers for meh. Okay, so
and if I were to go for meh, that would be, that's not too decisive. So
and this is in light of all of the striking revelations that I just made in my in my conspiracy theories segment.
Yes. Where
we talked about all the conspiracy theories. All right, so what do we know about the Fury X so far? Let's just put it this way. Let's start from a high level perspective. You don't have a Fury X, do you?
No.
Okay. But you've done a little bit, you've read a little bit about it, some of the stuff that's come out in the past week or so.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think a lot of you guys are in the same boat too. I'm guessing the vast majority of you out there don't have a Fury X, have not taken a Fury X, plugged it in and benchmarked it.
Right.
But what is the impression that you've gotten of Fury X reading reviews and whatnot over the past 3, 4, 5, 6 days?
Okay, so the impression I've got, so a lot of people were like, okay, it's similarly priced to the GTX 980 Ti, right? So yes. The big question I think on everyone's minds was, is it going to outperform a 980 Ti? Mm-hmm. And what they found was, from the benchmarks, is that it kind of trades blows and often doesn't outperform it.
Okay.
And I think that's okay. Basically based on just like the whole aspect of AMD as a whole. Like if you look at AMD, traditionally they've been looked at as a video card manufacturer that has put out video products that have a lot of energy consumption, a lot of power consumption. Mm-hmm. They get really hot, and they're not the best for thermals and whatnot. I think with HBM, the fact that AMD has taken on this new technology and have kind of become the pioneers of that sort of thing has really done good things for them in ways that we haven't seen before from AMD. So I think this is a really good step in the right direction for AMD. As far as like power consumption, you're looking at much more, you're looking at better memory efficiency with HBM as well. So I think they ran like GTA 5 tests between the GTX 980 Ti as well as the Fury X, and they found that like about 4 gigs, which is what's maxed out on Fury X, is about equivalent to like 5.5, 6 gigs on GDDR5, as seen with like the GTX 980 Ti. So the efficiency is there, the technology is there, and the potential is there. And what we're seeing is less power consumption, the lowest amount of power consumption per watt, per performance that we've seen from AMD in a long time. And so, like I said, I think it's a step in the right direction for AMD. Granted, it isn't a top performer. I would say if you were going to spend $650, if you were looking for raw gaming performance, the 980 Ti is still kind of where it's at. But as far as like, I don't know, people have their loyalties, right? Some people might still show allegiance to AMD based on, whatever it is, prior experience that they have with AMD cards. Team Red, maybe they favor their exclusive technologies, right, with gaming evolved and whatnot. So I think there is still like a lot of preference that goes into determining whether or not a 980 Ti or a Fury X card would be right for you. But all in all, this is the best that I've seen AMD perform in a long time in the high-powered graphics market.
Okay.
I mean, since I got into PCs, I haven't seen AMD make waves in this regard ever since then. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I think they're in the right direction, and I think they have a lot of potential because of that.
So I'll actually start my rebuttal to your point being that the Fury X is good, and my point is going to be the Fury X is bad, by agreeing with several of the things you said. Power efficiency, they made some good strides. The integration of HBM, yes, it was unique. and sort of groundbreaking to some extent, and even the performance was pretty good comparatively. But ultimately I was disappointed, at least for the sake of this argument, and the reason being there because I'll boil it down to three things. One is going to be driver development, and this is something where AMD has fallen short a lot in the past. Usually we don't see the full actual verified performance of the AMD products when they come out for a good 3 to 6 months after the product actually releases. Now granted, that is leaving some headroom for the Fury X, and we might even say the Fury X in the future might perform better based on driver updates, but first impressions are lasting impressions, and right out of the gate, the drivers not to be as fully fleshed out as they should be, or to be as compatible as they should be with all the games, or to be or to be able to draw as much performance out of the hardware as they should, I think was a big letdown for people. Second thing, and this is a small point but I think significant, is simply the lack of HDMI 2.0. I thought was very disappointing for me. This is a next-gen product. It's using next-generation technology. Sure, you've got your DisplayPort outs, but DisplayPort is not necessarily at home in a place like a home theater, for example, and gaming PCs these days more and more frequently have to compete in the living room space with your integrated consoles and everything. And I thought that the lack of HDMI 2.0 was really disappointing for a product like the Fury X. I mean, the idea that you could get a brand new 4K display in your living room, plug in HDMI 2.0, and just be off in gaming at 60 hertz or better, and you can't do that with this card, it being like a new flagship, I thought was fairly disappointing. And then the final thing, which I had in mind when I first started making this list of three things, but is now completely gone from my mind, so I'll make something up on the spur of the moment. It's too short. It's only 7.5 inches long.
It's too compact and efficient.
Was expecting more.
Expecting a bigger, bulkier card. Why is that so damn efficient?
No, I thought I had another idea of why the Fury X isn't going to meet expectations. All right, before we move on, what?
Was it just the clock speed or the?
Oh, actually, okay. That I guess it kind of goes along with the driver maturity.
I don't know why I'm helping you with your own sword fight. Jesus.
No, but you are right. That is a point that I wanted to make. Is that the overclocking right now is not meeting up to expectations. A lot of people who I've read have been getting maybe 50 to 100 megahertz more frequency out of the 1050 megahertz that it runs that out of the box, which is impressive for a chip of its size. Yeah. But simply the tools are not there. Overvoltage is still not a possibility with any of the software solutions that are out there for overclocking. And AMD even talked this up in some of the events leading up to the launch. Was like, oh, it's going to overclock like a dream and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, then let people overclock it. Yeah. Open it up so people can overclock it. And right now that's not the case. So from an overclocking standpoint, yes, the 980 Ti is far and away doing better than that. Now, some of the back and forth I wanted to read off real quick before we get into the results here from this actual Hexus.net article. Just people's responses, because there's a pretty wide variation. One was, I agree it's underwhelming, but I sort of knew it was heading for that in the last week or so no great surprise. One was, I expected more, but it's still a beast GPU. Yeah. One was, looking at the only performance which matters to me, 4K, Fury X is the one to have, as it can only get better with drivers. And that is a good point to make, is that Fury X is not as competitive when it comes to benchmark numbers when you're looking at 1080 or 1440, for example, but at 4K is where it really starts to shine and be much more competitive, especially against the NVIDIA offerings. Right. And then neither card is on my radar. I'm a gamer, but I'm not spending what's essentially a house payment for the privilege, which means that, hey, these cards are $650 price points, and whereas people might be interested in reading about them or whatever, the prospect of actually owning one is like outside the realm of possibility.
Which makes folks like you and I seem delusional. Like, what are we doing with our time and money? Just spending money on expensive
a little
high-end video
bit,
cards
but the high end
for
stuff,
higher frame rates.
But the high end stuff always trickles down. Like
Of
whether
course.
it's because it became 6 months or a year old and the prices dropped on it, or whether it's because the technology from product A 6 months or a year later has been integrated into product B.
Right.
Like it always trickles down. So I think that's why people keep an eye on it. But of course, with Sword Fight, we always want to hear what you guys have to say.
All right, what do we got?
So here's the question. We'll see who.
It was amazing. I was disappointed. Wow. Meh. And most people
So,
were disappointed. You were either okay with it, whatever, or you were disappointed. Very few of you were amazed.
I think this has. I think this has a lot
agree.
to do with establishing expectations.
Yeah.
And I think the way AMD was talking, the way they were talking so much leading up to the launch,
You see the downfall.
was that this was going to beat the 980 Ti.
Hands down.
And if it did,
Hands down.
even if it was by 5%,
It still would
5 to 10%, even if it was consistent across the board,
these results would be different.
then they'd be way different. But as it stands, it's either maybe beating it by a little, on about the same level, or coming in just below.
Yeah.
But it's more like trading blows with the 980 Ti. And then again, from there, it depends on whether overclocking is involved and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm very curious to see driver progression in this sense, because as I kind of mentioned before, AMD has kind of a reputation for drivers maturing slowly over time.
Right.
But like 290X, for example, like got so much more performance in the first 6 to 9 months after launch.
Yeah.
From driver updates.
Yeah.
So, it is something to keep an eye on.
It's interesting to see, because rarely ever do we do a straw poll like this where the meh or the
Yeah,
more
the
ambiguous
middle one.
answer wins.
Yeah.
It's usually like definitive, but I think it's because there was so much hype that AMD had put into advertising the Fury X to where it just kind of fell short of expectation. When you're hyping something up that much...
It was also their biggest launch in like, how many years? Like 3, 4, 5 years?
At least.
I mean, they've had a few that they've tried to hype up, like FX series and whatnot, but nothing that's been really worth talking about after launch or anything like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still a nice looking card though.
Let's do Sword Fight Part 2. Oh, you know what I keep forgetting to do?
What?
I keep forgetting to show people the origin of Sword Fight.
The origin?
You don't even know where it comes from. I'm gonna have to.
Comes from the feudal era.
No, I'm gonna have to leave that as a tease for a future episode. But I have an origin of Sword Fight clip that I'm gonna show.
Two dudes
at some
with
point.
dicks just hanging out, just
that's pretty much it.
cock slapping
just
each other.
Dicks,
That's great.
dicks slapping around.
Glad
Okay.
I'm waiting out for that.
Here's the next Sword Fight.
What do we got?
I'm gonna post this a bunch of times
All right.
in chat.
Is sleeving your own power supply worth it?
All right. If you guys have been following my Instagrams or my social medias or anything like that, you maybe have encountered a few of the images I've been posting in the past few days.
Don't do it.
On Instagram, by the way, I am Paul Hardware without an S, and on Twitter, I'm also Paul Hardware. But here, for instance, is a picture that I posted on Instagram of all of my power supply cables, because I have been going through an ongoing project to finish my Arctic Panther build. I don't have my soundboard to play the audio. It's okay, I'll do it in post. I'm not going to do it in post. But I've been working on sleeving my power supply, and it's been a bit of a job for various reasons. In fact, even to the point where this past weekend, because I had nothing else to post, I posted a video just talking about the difficulties and other problems I have encountered whilst trying to get my power supply sleeved. I've even encountered like another snafu or two since I made this video.
So it should be more like 10 power supply sleeving snafus that you should watch out for.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can go wrong, I'm sure, with this
lot.
kind of process. After everything you've told me and shown me today, like, I would never want to do this.
You'd never want
I would never do this. It sounds so time-consuming and tedious and intensive that unless you were a modder, like that's what you did for a living, I don't know if I would have the time to ever devote to something like this.
But you have done
You've done sleeving.
Some of this. You have done some sleeving. You've made your own custom extension.
Extensions, mind you, are quite simple.
And that, but it still involves several, or at least quite a few of the same techniques that are used with full sleeving.
Yeah.
So you have some knowledge of the amount of time and energy that it takes to do this.
I'd also say 90% of what the snafus are in this video are things that you would never encounter making your own extensions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question that we're asking here on our sword fight, which is sleeving your own power supply worth it? Which side of that argument?
Do you even feel confident in arguing for it?
I honestly could argue either side at this point.
Okay. Well, I will let you pick this time because
pick?
I picked the last one, so you pick this one. I'm cool to argue either way.
Okay. I'll say yes, it is worth it.
Okay.
I gotta stick with it because I'm not done yet too. I need to keep my spirits up for the last.
By the way, when we played Face Off earlier in my segment of the show, Paul suggested that the penalty for the loser be that we had to sleeve the rest of his cables.
That was one of my ideas.
I think that's a perfect way to lead into
Kyle didn't
my argument for why it's not worth it.
That would have only benefited me because I'm going to sleeve them either way.
Of course.
It's just a way of trying to get him to do it. All right, so I'm going to say that it is worth it. I'll go first if you don't mind.
Yeah, handle it.
All right.
Good luck.
And the reasons I keep telling myself over and over again that it's worth it for me to do all the work I've been doing on my own power supply. So when it comes to building your own custom PC, I think there comes a certain point where you've done all that you can do when it comes to like off-the-shelf parts. And there's a lot you can do with off-the-shelf parts. You can really pick and choose your own components and your own accessories, and especially when it comes down to like a case and a power supply and other little bits and pieces that you put in there to make things proper, to make things fit, to make everything fit in with the color scheme. I mean, we've talked about this plenty on going over systems on Pimp My PC on your half of the show, where it's like there's a lot that goes into just choosing the components for a basic system. But once you've done that, and once you've done it multiple times, and once you've realized that taking even all these off-the-shelf parts that you've specifically chosen out and put together, but really anyone who knows that parts list can do the same thing, doing something to make it more unique and more your own, I think, is really taking it to the next level when it comes to being an enthusiast, when it comes to being a modder, if you can call yourself that, and when it comes to creating an experience that you create a system that's not just like, hey, this is a computer and it can do X, Y, and Z, but this is also a hobby. This is something I invest my spare time in, and this is something that I take pride in when it comes to like the fit and finish and these little extra touches. And when it comes to power supply sleeving, that I feel like when you look at a system is one of the most standout elements, even beyond like a graphics card or like a liquid cooling system. Well, with liquid cooling, that's very visible, but it's such a great complement to that I feel like it really shows that you've taken the extra steps to make your system your own, and also to make it unique and custom in a way that no one else can just go and be like, oh, I'm going to buy all the same parts and build the same system for myself. So I think that's really what it comes down to for me, is making something that's unique, that's different, and that I can look at and be like, I know the amount of time and effort I spent on that, and that's why that's my system, and that's my, it's my special build that I made for myself and that I feel happy about. All
right. Well, that was a very respectable and very long-winded reason of why you're wrong.
But it was stupid.
And I will tell you why I'm right. And that is because the copious amount of hours and time and effort that it's taken you so far to kind of create a custom sleeved cable solution for your system, I think you probably poured at least a good 80 hours into that power supply.
80?
I would have to assume. I mean,
maybe.
This is just based on the amount of content that I produce for my own channel, and looking at what you've done. I mean, I've been following your Instagram for the last 3 days, and everything that I've seen on it in the last 3 days is just cable sleeving, cable sleeving, cable sleeving, and yet it's just like this one component. It's this one part of your computer that you spent so much time on, And it's like, is it really worth it in the end to sleeve the entirety of your power supply? Now, granted, I agree that there is some research that goes into determining whether or not your power supply is kind of tailored or optimized for customization, because I think that some power supplies are better or easier to sleeve than others, and we were talking about this earlier.
Oh yeah.
I think your particular power supply is, I mean, first of all, it's not fully modular. Some of the cables, including like the 24-pin, the 8-pin EPS, CPU connector, go into the actual power supply. You have to take the thing off. You have to take the frame off. You have to get into the nitty-gritty. You've done some soldering. I mean, you've done things that I have not. I've had nightmares about.
I haven't done the soldering yet.
You haven't even done the soldering yet.
I had to get solder
if
because I
that's
didn't have any.
even more indication of how arduous and how tedious this task is, he hasn't even gotten around to the soldering portion of it. Yes, there's soldering involved. If you don't know anything about soldering, stay away. I've done cable sleeving extensions, and that was pretty much a breeze compared to what you're doing. Still very tedious, extremely time consuming. Granted, I was making a video on it, so I was filming the whole process, which takes even longer to kind of document that whole experience, but it's not for the faint of heart. And unless you're completely dedicated and committed to making a fully custom build, that you can't just achieve with pre-bought extensions, I can't say it's really worth it. Honestly, most people that would approach me and say, hey, I'm trying to do a cool custom build, would you suggest I do sleeving? I'd say no. I would tell my fiance, if my fiance has a brother who's, her little brother is interested in building a system, and I think this is a question he'd probably ask me, like, should I do custom sleeving? I'd say no, don't do it. Just stop. Just buy the sleeved it doesn't matter. That's my initial reaction, and it's based on experience. It's based on me doing it firsthand. It's me based on watching Paul's recent video, which you should all watch, which is horrifying. It's just a nightmare, and you're like, I never want to experience that in my life. I think your recent video is probably reason enough to combat your own argument as to why you should not do this very maybe gratifying but also time-consuming task.
Yeah.
In sleeving your own cable extensions, or your own cables for that matter, of your power supply.
All right. Well, a very compelling argument, Kyle.
And also, I think people in chat are suggesting that we follow suit with. Did you see the Shia LaBeouf? Shia LaBeouf.
What's with Shia LaBeouf?
Just do it.
Do
it.
He's the guy from
Just do it. Transformers.
Transformers, right?
Yeah.
Why does he have any social significance anymore?
He did some like indie film where he's in front of a green screen for an hour and a half, and he's doing like this motivational speech.
Oh.
And all he's saying is like, "Do it, just do it," and it's just it's obviously turned into like some ridiculous meme.
All right.
Well, that's what you need to do. That's the mentality you need to have in order to take on a task like you are right now.
Okay. Well, very, very compellingly argued, Kyle, and I can't say that I disagree with all of your points, but of course we need to see what people thought.
What do we got?
On the straw poll, which is, again, we have a yes, a no, and an in-between answer.
Okay.
All right. Well, it looks like you were right for the most part, which is no way. I prefer to avoid hours or days of tedium.
Fair enough.
But we also have a yes. I mean, here's
it's close.
Here's a very significant difference from our previous question, which is that we have a lot more people who are strongly feeling it one way or the other about it versus in the middle.
Yeah.
And also very close. We only have 33 votes of yes or 33 votes of no and 32 votes of yes.
Yep.
So, yeah. I will say, since usually at the end of this we
look, it's switching. It's like fluctuating as you have it.
Yeah,
up. It switched like 3 times.
No, it's live. It'll update. All right, so we've just flip flopped, and now we're over to yes. It makes your build personal and unique.
Wow.
All right, looks like I win. Good thing you pointed that out.
Let's wait 2 more minutes.
We had 2 more votes come in there for yes. But no, I mean like we usually say at the end of these little debates is, there's what we argued and there's what we actually think. I would say for the vast majority of people, Cable extensions make a lot more sense. Whether you're talking about pre-bought cable extensions where you just find some that you like, buy them, plug them in, you're good.
Right.
Or even making your own custom cable extensions like Kyle did. He has a good review or a good how-to video of it on his channel.
Thank you.
Which are, it's just, granted it's not simple. It still takes a fair amount of work, and it's an involved process, and it's time-consuming. But it's a simpler way of getting that look without doing the full-on process that I'm doing.
Right.
But I still stand behind what the project I'm working on right now. One, I said I would do it, and I try to follow through on things I say I'm going to do when I can. And, I mean, hopefully by and large, but I don't know, maybe I don't know, I can't say I'm 100%. And two, if you are going to do something like what I'm doing, if you have a better idea in your head of what's coming, hopefully by like maybe relating to my experience, and you kind of plan things out. Like if I did that and I was like, all right, every night I'm going to spend an hour and a half on this for 2 weeks, I would have come at it with a much better cadence. Like what I've been telling myself is like, all right, I'm starting on this in the morning, so I should be able to finish this today.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. Not a good thing to tell yourself.
Right.
One thing is hard to stick at all day because it can be very time consuming. Two is like some of the things I've ran into where I've just had a stopping point, and I'm like, I can't continue until I get another piece of hardware, something like that. And three, it's just like, you know, I'm totally underestimating the number of actual just physical hours it's going to take to finish it. So
yeah,
I understand anyone who's saying no way, and thankfully there's lots of options to get a very, very similar finishing result without going through all the hours of tedium.
Right.
But if you're at the point where you're similar to me, where it's like I've built lots of systems before, I've tried lots of things, but here's an area that I've never delved into before, that I've never tried. I've seen people do it, I've read about it, I've seen the results of it, I've seen builds where I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome, and I want to try it myself, and for me, that's made it very, very much worth it. But
cool.
All right, moving on to the last segment, which is Q&A, which is where you guys ask us any random questions that you might want us to answer, and we do our very best to answer them to the best of our knowledge.
Cool.
At least as
I like
much as
questions.
possible. And so yeah, feel free to send us some questions on Twitter right now. Our Twitter handles are down here, or you can ask some questions in the Twitch chat, and we'll try to catch those if we can, and maybe share some more knowledge with you guys.
Drop the knowledge.
I do want to point out that it's too late to send in pictures of systems for Pimp My PC. That time has passed.
Yes.
Although we're still getting them.
Wait for next Tuesday.
We're still getting them next Tuesday, perhaps. Oh, excuse me. All right. I do want to point out that we have confirmed that Hammered Kyle is the best Kyle. And about time someone else is first to be hammered on the show, because apparently I have done a better job at getting wasted on our show than you have.
You had your opportunity, now I have mine.
We need more 13% alcohol for Kyle.
I tried to tone down for your half of the show.
You're doing a good job, though. You're almost done there.
I know.
Which is pretty impressive.
I mean, 13%. This is stronger than most wines. It's pretty much like I've drank in. I can't even speak now. I've drank about, I don't know, 5 glasses of wine. This is probably 5 glasses of wine. So, yeah, I'm not driving anytime soon. In case you guys are concerned or worried about that. I'm going to be keeping Paul company. Humble company. I'm going to be sticking with him for several hours on
Kyle, here's a question for you.
Which he is very excited for. What?
It's a question for you. Your monitor, you have a QNX, right?
I do.
This is from Generic Dan.
QX27.
He's asking, have the QNX QX2710 has held up since you bought it?
It's actually held up really nicely.
That's good.
I'm experiencing the same performance the day I bought it. There was a limited backlight bleed, probably towards the bottom of the monitor, which I don't notice at all, unless the monitor is completely black, which it rarely ever is. But altogether, I paid $300 for that monitor, and I have a dual monitor setup. The monitor to the right is an Asus. It's got 3D vision surround and stuff like that. It's probably double the price at the time of retail. The time that they went on sale, it's double the price as my QNX monitor, But when I drag like a video file, let's say I have a video or a movie playing in Windows Media Player, I drag it over, like the IPS panel itself is just so much more, has so much better color reproduction. More betterish color reproduction than my TN panel, that I almost can't even watch anything on my TN panel anymore, even though it was like, you know, and granted the TN panel is 144 hertz refresh rate, but I still prefer gaming on the QNX just because of the color reproduction, and the refresh rate on it is overclockable. So I actually have it overclocked to about 120 hertz, which is really nice. Altogether, the only thing that I would say is a downfall is the stand, which kind of lack thereof. It doesn't really have much tilt functionality or swivel functionality, but great picture quality, and I would recommend it to anyone. I'd buy it again. I'd buy 2 more of them if I could.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, we had a question in chat, which keeps scanning by. Fumin Shao asks, which internet private connection do you prefer? I think he's meaning like a VPN. I'm guessing he means a VPN or virtual private network.
You'd have more experience.
I've only really worked extensively with 2 of them, and both of them are ones that I can recommend. Private internet access is the one that I use on a regular basis that I have here. And if you guys do sign up for private internet access, I would recommend going through Logan's link, because he has a deal with them, and you can click on that stuff, and that helps him out. I've also used Viper VPN, VYPR. That's what I was using while I was in China, and that has their chameleon encryption, which does some crazy stuff to kind of mask who you are and what you're doing and what the data is that you're sending. So that did a good job while I was in China and needed to get around the Great Firewall of China. So those are 2 that I could recommend.
You could actually go on Facebook.
Yeah. And I could actually connect to Google services, which was what the main thing I needed.
Yeah.
Juan de Luna asks, are you scared that your PC might blow up with the sleeving going wrong? Juan, I will say that I am scared, not of my PC blowing up, because I'm not going to take my power supply once it's finished, or at least the sleeving job is finished, and plug it into my PC. I'm going to be plugging it into a power supply tester first.
Right.
I am scared that when I plug it into the power supply tester, I will not get good readings on that power supply tester. I'm still very optimistic that I will, because I haven't had any major issues go wrong, but I am doing some modifications to the power supply, and there is a possibility that it just won't work when I plug it in. I was actually talking to Kyle a little bit about that earlier today. It would be a massive disappointment based on all of the time and effort I put into that PSU. I can't deny that it's a possibility. Really hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I have a plan of what to do if it does. But yeah, as far as it blowing up the actual parts in my system, I'm fairly confident that if I connect it to the power supply tester and I'm getting good readings as far as the amount of voltage that's being delivered to all of the different connective cables, that it will be fine in the system itself.
Nice.
So yeah, gotta test the PSU first.
Cool. Radeon R9 390 or GTX 970?
Very good question.
That is a good question. I think apart from the main thing you have to think about is what kind of ecosystem do you want to be involved in? Would you rather deal with NVIDIA drivers and NVIDIA technology and get access to things like G-Sync and whatnot, dynamic super resolution, or would you prefer the AMD route where you get FreeSync? You have to think about, like, it's all connected now. Like, what kind of monitor are you planning on getting?
AMD has dynamic super resolution now too.
They do. It's just called something different, but it's the exact same thing. But they all have their intricacies and whatnot. It's a matter of preference is what it boils down to, because I think the performance on both those cards is fairly similar. I think a lot of review sites will show that. So at that point, it just kind of matters on your whole philosophy or outlook on those particular vendors. Which one have you had the best experience with in the past, or which one are you curious to find out more about their own individual technologies? Because I think both competitors are very strong at this point. I personally am rocking rocking, as I say,
Rocket.
rocking, I get hit by the rocket fan. I'm personally rocking NVIDIA, but I've also been using the 390X quite frequently since I got a review sample of it. I just kind of slotted it in and have been using it for the last week or two, and I've noticed great results with it. You know, I'm just as happy with the 390X as I have been with my EVGA for the Win Edition GTX 970. So it really just boils down to personal preference, I think. It's just one of those general questions that warrant general answers that I can't really give you a definitive answer until you go ahead and test it out yourself. So sorry I can't be more like clear cut on that, but that's just how it is sometimes.
There's two questions here I want to answer. One is from Black Pacer 56. He asks, will the 750 SSD from Intel, the NVMe one, work on X79? No, it will not.
Nope.
You need NVMe support, and if you're looking at the 750 series SSD from Intel, I would only recommend it right now if you're on X99.
Yeah.
Simply because those are the boards that are getting the NVMe updates for it.
Right.
Those are the boards that also have bandwidth for the SSD and like a high-end graphics card and something
Your
like
Deluxe
that.
has it, right?
Yeah, my Deluxe has it. I may or may not have it over there ready to be installed in the Arctic Panther.
Nice.
When it comes to the epic comparison of our two builds, and you're like, I got 980 Ti's, that may or may not be my last remaining trump card.
I'll still take the 980 Ti's.
I know. Wait, there was one other question right next to that one that I wanted to answer.
What's that?
Oh, no, it's gone. Where did it go? Shoot. Oh, there it was. Do you guys, all right, Zero Mind asks, do you guys have any tips for transporting your PC, monitors, peripherals? Moving 3 hours away tomorrow, could use some advice. He's super paranoid about his
PC,
stuff.
monitors, peripherals.
All right. So when I have transported my like gaming PCs in the past, if it's somewhere where you're driving and you're there with it, basically I treat that as like precious cargo that doesn't get packed in with everything else. And like I set it on the front seat of like next to me right there so that it's there. And like if I stop fast, I can grab it or something like that. Do that if you can. If you can treat it very specially and put it there in a special place where you can always have eyes on it, that's usually best. Careful. Oh, Kyle's bringing Nori up into the shot here. If that's not possible, remove your graphics cards. That's for sure.
Yes.
Pull the GPUs out, store them separately.
CPU coolers maybe?
CPU cooler too, if you have a big heavy air cooler, that might be something to consider, pulling that off. Oh, she's going to go for these. Other than that, I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do. I mean, padding around it and everything like that is obviously something to go for. But yeah, I mean, I've always just treated it specially, and I've put it somewhere where like I always know where it is, and I know where I can have eyes on it, and I know if I'm like driving the car, like it's not going to get moved around too much or something like that. But yeah, pulling heavy stuff out, especially if it's a desktop build, I think would be a good option there. But yeah. I think we need to wrap up the show.
I agree.
Especially since Nori is here. Hey.
Your doggy wants love. She wants attention.
She does want some attention.
So I think we've given you guys enough attention for one night.
We have.
We have gone over, and we really appreciate for those of you who have stuck around and watched the entire show. Thank you so much. This has
been a very long show.
Yes, it has.
But yeah, thanks you guys for being here. Of course, we'll be here again next week on Tuesday evening, so join us live if you can. If not, the uploads will be again on our channels. Don't forget to hit the like button on this and share it with all your friends, and keep it for all of your future generations to enjoy. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. See you guys next time.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Nori. No, you're funny. You're a silly dog. You're a silly dog.
Wait, it went live again.
We're still live.
Oh, I did the wrong button.